class. Before we get started today, I have a question for all of you. If you were offered the chance to take a trip on a cruise ship that is unsinkable, would you do it? Go ahead and talk with a partner, and then in about 5 minutes we'll come together and share some of our answers. So then I'd have the students talk in partners or in groups, and after a couple minutes we'd come together and I would call on a couple of them to share their answers. After that, I would go into asking if they know anything about the Titanic. And at the first grade level, I feel like what they would know about the Titanic might be that the ship sank, it hit an iceberg. And some of them may have seen the movie and will draw stuff from there and talk about Jack and Rose and stuff like that. So I would find out their background knowledge on the Titanic first. I would then have them sit down and I would read the first chapter of Tonight on the Titanic, which is the book that we would be focusing on. One day in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, a mysterious treehouse appeared in the woods. 8-year-old Jack and his 7-year-old sister Annie climbed into the treehouse. They found that it was filled with books. Jack and Annie soon discovered that the treehouse was magic. It could take them to the places in the books. All they had to do was point to a picture and wish to go there. Along the way, they discovered that the house belongs to Morgan Le Fay. Morgan is a magical librarian from the time of King Arthur. She travels through time and space gathering books. In Magic Treehouse books number 5 through 8, Jack and Annie help free Morgan from a spell. In books 9 through 12, they solved 4 ancient riddles and became master librarians. In Magic Treehouse books 13 through 16, Jack and Annie had to save 4 ancient stories from being lost forever. Now, in book 17, they are about to begin a new set of adventures. Now, that was the prologue. It was the shortest thing in here. I didn't want to read chapter 1 because that was too long. But after reading chapter 1, I would then break the class up into groups. Most students would read it individually if they were able to. Others would be in small groups, and some would be with me. Once we read through the book, maybe multiple times, I would then bring the class together for a discussion, and we would talk about comparisons between the book and what they already knew about the Titanic. After reading through the book once, the second time we would reread it, after each chapter we would talk about a different part of the story. So after chapter 1, we might talk about what characters were introduced. And then after chapter 2, we might talk about the setting, and so on and so forth, so that students get to learn about the different parts of a story. At the end of the unit, I would ask the students the same question that I did at the beginning. If they were offered the chance to go on a cruise on an unsinkable ship, would they go, knowing what happened to the Titanic, what they read in the book, and what they know now about cruise ships? And we would talk about all of that throughout the unit, about how they're safer now, there's more precautions, there's more lifeboats, and throughout the unit we would also talk about what actually happened to the Titanic and why it sank, why it hit the iceberg in the first place, because it was going too fast, because they were trying to make up for lost time. So students would know all of this before the end of the unit. And most of them would probably still answer that they would go on the cruise, because you don't often hear now cruises go on all the time, and rarely is there ever a report of something terrible happening. So that is how I would take that using this book and make it into a unit on the structure of a story.